The telegram that everyone dreads that has anyone in the military. We regret to inform you.
As first responders, they didn't get drafted to go to Canada. The American boys being felt under pressure to go to Canada. They just think this is the right thing to do.
I mean, how do you take a guy like Harold Moore from Boone's Mill? Boone's Mill is a small little town outside of Roanoke. And how does Harold Moore end up flying for the Royal Canadian Air Force?
I certainly wasn't as aware of the numbers, which I thought was pretty astounding, of the Americans who fought and died with the Royal Canadian Air Force.
In 1939, the world watched in silence as a major international conflict took hold in Europe. As nation after nation fell at the feet of Nazi Germany and the Axis powers, England was left alone to fight for survival. It was 1940, and the Battle of Britain had just begun. Men and women from Canada and the Commonwealth headed to Europe to fight. The United States, still remembering the terrible loss of lives of World War I, decided this time to wait and see. For some in America, they felt there was a need to volunteer. Over 8,000 came to Canada in these early years before the attack on Pearl Harbor. They volunteered and joined the RCAF and soon found themselves being trained in Canada and then off to Europe to fight. Some of these brave men were from the state of Virginia.
Why did he go to war? We were in the midst of the Great Depression. There were no jobs. So young men were flocking to the military because it was England. And he felt that we should all be there. He felt it was wrong of this country to stay out of it when England was being so beaten. And he, and I imagine a lot of those other men, all went for that reason, that England needed help.
I think, especially before Pearl Harbor, I think they were probably very well-read, educated. I knew some of them from the Richmond area came from pretty prominent families. And I'm sure that they saw in the newspaper Hitler coming to power and just the aggression going on. I'm sure that they really just wanted to get in there and help.
It was a time of war, and people needed to be trained for battle. One of these air bases was RCAF Vulcan in Alberta, Canada. Carl Kasgard invites J.R. Hafer and John Stemple of the U.S.-based 20th Century Aviation magazine to Vulcan as they walk the runway remembering the past.
What sort of feelings do you have when you're running through these hangars that have been here for over 70 years and they're still here? What do you feel about that?
Well, I was just getting ready to say that just sitting here or standing here at the end of the runway, and if you're real quiet, I think that you can hear the history of this place. You can, it's really emotional. And this place is inhabited by the souls of the Americans and the Canadians that trained here. And it's just amazing how you can be overwhelmed. This isn't just a geographic location. This is a place where spirits dwell.
In 1960, after RCAF Vulcan was closed, a remaining Lancaster bomber was bought and dragged across 30 miles of prairie to the nearby town of Nanton. Over the years, the Lancaster was restored and became the centerpiece of the remarkable Bomber Command Museum of Canada. Volunteers from the museum, in honor of Canadian, American, and Commonwealth airmen, built a stunning wall of remembrance featuring the names of those who fought and died fighting for freedom. When I was a young man, I flew with my best friends. We took to the blue skies and followed our captains. The times called for fighting, but we knew that our missions were standing for freedom again and again. There's a wall in the town of Nanton, Alberta. There's a wall in the town with the names of the men who rebelled while fighting for freedom. In our memories, they'll always remain. in our memories they'll always remain. The Canadian-American connection was expanded with the creation of a special Canada-USA project by the Bomber Command Museum of Canada and Halifax 57 Rescue. Director Carl Kasgard has been honoring veterans for years. His latest projects are in Sweden, England, and Canada, featuring the recovery and restoration of Halifax aircraft for the museum. His special programs include the recovery of aircraft NA337 from Norway, Halifax LW682 from Belgium, the Bomber Command Museum of Canada, and the magnificent Bomber Command Memorial in London, England. Aluminum from the RCAF combat Halifax aircraft recovered in Belgium was melted down into ingots and eventually became the ceiling of the memorial in London's Green Park. Dedicated by the Queen of England, the aluminum is the Bomber Command Museum of Canada's contribution to honor the airmen of Bomber Command. The Bomber Command Museum of Canada, RCAF American project, is simple. With over 8,000 Americans from 48 states joining the air war, we have reached out to many American states with a list of names of those American patriots and Canadian warriors who fought in World War II. Of the 8,000 volunteers who came to Canada, over 800 American airmen never made it home. Men like Tom Withers. His family, including his younger sister, remembers his sacrifice for freedom.
We lived in the country, and you could see the mail carrier go up the road, and I would say to Mother, "Do you want me to go get the mail?" And most days she would say yes. There were days when she'd say, "No, I'll get it later." First raid he'd been on since the 1,000 bomber raid over Cologne that he flew in. And I don't think it was long at all when the message came. The telegram that everyone dreads that has anyone in the military. "We regret to inform you." A little healing, a little less pain over him. Even though I was just a child, we adored him, all of us, all his siblings. We looked up to him so. He had accomplished so much. It means an awful lot.
In 2013, the Virginia War Memorial held a special ceremony as Carl traveled to Richmond for the presentation. Years later, those memories are still held in the hearts of many Virginians.
In Virginia, we think we have the premier war memorial in the entire United States. And so we think that it's appropriate that Virginia was first in recognizing the service of Virginians in the Royal Canadian Air Force, that many before Pearl Harbor, when the war was raging in Europe and elsewhere around the world, that Virginia patriots responded even though the United States had not joined the war. So to dedicate a plaque that day and to have you and all of the Canadian officials and our Virginia officials and American officials here for that dedication. This room was packed. There was standing room only, as you will recall, and it was fantastic to be able to, after all these years, to recognize these heroes that had gone, sort of slipped through the cracks. But it's so good to have them now recognized appropriately here at the memorial.
I think reflecting on why this is important to not only the historical significance, but I'd look at this as a continuation of the remarkable, warm celebration of friendship and love and mutual respect, and perhaps most importantly, a commitment to the wonderful ideals of democracy and freedom, and the fact that sacrifice must be made to preserve those ideals that Canada and the United States have enjoyed now for several centuries. You couldn't pick a better neighbor.
This beautiful plaque, made from the aluminum of a World War II Halifax aircraft recovered in Belgium, is a reminder of our past and a true honor to witness firsthand.
I think it's a wonderful addition here, especially because the marble that the names are engraved on was part of the original marble from the shrine. outside. So I think it really ties us together. And just the seal, knowing that it's part of the original Halifax bomber was really neat, and I think that's a really cool thing to tell visitors.
Well, I think it was very interesting to have the families here, but I think the thing I remember most about the ceremony, and it was very stirring, was having the quartet of the high school guys here, and they singing the Canadian national anthem and the American national anthem, and it was just a symbolic cementing of what went on, and in honoring these men who fought and were so brave that they said, I'm going to go fight with my Canadian brothers and Brits, even though we're not in the war yet.
Well, I don't want to embarrass Jim, because one of the highlights of that ceremony was that beautiful anthem written for the occasion.
So you're talking about American Eagle and Proud Maple Leaf.
Yep. Very moving lyrics, very moving song.
When Tom Withers Jr. was a young man, he decided to go off to war. From Roseland, Virginia, he headed up north to find the great wide open door. For courage was needed, and Canada's boys were sailing to Europe to fight. From the Battle of Britain to the missions beyond, reflections of words from high flight. As time passes and our memories fade, the Bomber Command Museum of Canada and Halifax 57 Rescue, aircraft recoveries and documentaries will help those in the future realize the dedication of these Canadian, American, and Commonwealth airmen who fought defending our right to be free.
Ceremonies for such an occasion and time as this is indeed an honor. As national spokesperson for the Greatest Generation Foundation, I find this a fitting act on my part as it extends our purpose beyond our borders to recognize that not all of our heroes wore uniforms of the United States. They nonetheless represented everything that patriotism demanded. Thus today we have brought home to Virginia our own to acknowledge their duty, which was giving of their all in the interest of their country's cause.
I would venture to say that outside of Virginia, there needs to be more markers like this throughout the United States, and more Americans need to know of the partnership between the United States and Canada.
Oh, absolutely. We need to tell the story of the sacrifice of the Americans, the Virginians, and the Canadians, everybody, of all the individuals who were fighting a war against tyranny. And we can't, I've seen it so many times around here now, it's almost cliche that freedom is anything but free. And they paid the ultimate sacrifice. Virginians, other Americans, Canadians, and Brits. And it's so very important that young people be aware of that and be made aware of that and educated.
We were proud in Virginia to be the first state to honor these Royal Canadian Air Force Americans. I would hope, for the sake of all that fought from every state in the United States, that this would be a fitting tribute and also bring attention nationally to what went on. Not, you know, we did it here in Virginia, but it should be known by all Americans, and that what went on, because I think it's a forgotten part of history that needs to be remembered.
And I believe that the memorial has a teaching responsibility to all of our citizens, not just Virginians and not just students, but all of us need to be reminded that freedom is not free.
Now who fights for freedom and who locks their hands together in battle for Bomber Command? American eagle and the proud maple leaf, flying together for what they believe. American eagle and the proud maple leaf, flying together for what they believe.